Hello everyone, we're here today for a tutorial on the world famous Flying Scotsman. Today you'll learn how to drive this beast. So I thought we'll start by just giving you a quick tour of the cab. So you got your cab lights up here, which will help for working in the dark. You've got front, all the two different types there. You've got your reverser here. You've got your train brake, which is just here. This works both on vacuum and on air, so you can use this brake to do for both. Well, your locomotive brake just there. Use your large and small ejectors. So if you remember using the Jubilee and the 8S, you only use these for the vacuum brake. So if you're just using air, you just use this brake. But I will go through that later on. Then your regulator here. You've got your AWS equipment there, and I'll show you how to turn on the AWS as well. Your sander down here. So, and then what you've got on the back here, so your cylinder cocks are down here, and your AWS isolation switch is there. Should go fire all door. Obviously, you can also go into the corridor tender. So if you then crouch, you can then walk through the corridor tender and into the coach, which is really cool. So that gives you sort of the general controls. There is other controls as well, which I will go through if needed. One of them being the vacuum reset for redoing onto air brakes. So yes, we will now show you how to start a train. So it's now time to get Flying Scotsman moving. So what we're going to do is put the reverser into 65% forward, just so we don't wheel spin. There we go. And as you can see, we're on the air brake stock. So if I just bring the camera, you can see we're on the Mark II coaching stock. So these are air brakes only. And what we're going to do is just release the brakes like that, put it into overcharge, and then it'll push back to running. You'll see the brakes now come down like that. There we go. Quick blow on the whistle, and then we're gradually going to bring the regulator up. Now, if I quickly just close the regulator, if I suddenly did this, you can see it goes into a wheel spin. If you quickly just close the regulator, if you ever get a wheel spin, just quickly shut the regulator as I did there, and you'll be able to move. If I just then gradually bring the regulator back up again. There we go. We'll then close the cylinder cocks like that. Bring the reverser back to about 55. Open the regulator a little bit more. Bring the reverser back a bit more. Open the regulator a little bit more. And to keep it efficient, bring the reverser slowly down bit by bit as you gain speed. And as you get to sort of a good speed, don't get any lower than 25% on the regulator, on the reverser, and that way you keep the engine nice and efficient. As you can see now, we're cruising quite nicely, and the engine's nice and efficient. We're keeping our pressure. So what I'm going to do to stop, I'm just going to quickly close the regulator, and then I'm going to gradually bring the brake on. I'm going to slowly bring it on and off, just like that, just so we get a nice slow stop. There we go. So a nice smooth stop there. So there we go. So that's starting and stopping Flying Scotsman on the air brakes. What we're going to do now is go on to the vacuum brake stock, and we'll go on to our next section. So as you can see here, we're now on our vacuum brake stock. So with our Mark I coaching stock. Now to release the brakes on Flying Scotsman, this is slightly different. So again, as I said, in 65%, And we'll get it to there. Now what we're going to do is open the small ejector, and open the large ejector, put the brake into overcharge release, just give the brake pressures a time to sort themselves out. As you can hear, you can now hear the vacuum being created until we get to where it says VP and VC on the HUD. When you get to 21, should be okay. So there we go. You see we're starting to roll back now. If I just give the regulator a little bit. Again, close the cylinder cocks. Bring the reverser back a little bit. Then what we're going to do is, as we've started moving, we'll close the large ejector and we'll be reliant on the small ejector like that. And as you can see, we're moving nicely now. Because this is a slightly heavier tray, I'm going to open the regulator a little bit more. There we go, we're nice smoothly, running nice and smoothly and efficiently. Now to stop on the vacuum brakes, what I'm going to do is open the large ejector. And then I'm going to gradually bring the brakes on and off. So you see the vacuum pressure now coming up and the vacuum pipe now coming up. With the vacuum brakes, they do take a little bit longer than the air brakes. So we'll bring it back on again. There we go. And as I say, as you can see, I'm just gradually bringing the brakes on and off to make a nice smooth and steady stop. There we go. Then as we've come to a stop, we can then close the large ejector, be reliant on the small ejector there, and we'll just open the cylinder cocks not to damage the cylinders. So there we go. So that's stopping on a vacuum brake and getting started on the vacuum brakes. So on to our next section. So if you're running with the Mark IIs and air brake stock, if by mistake you open the large ejector, which you can see on the HUD creates a vacuum, if I suddenly then shut the large ejector, there is a way of you being able to get the train out of being able to move the train. Because if I now release the brakes, right, and I open the regulator with a reverser and make it go a little bit higher, as you can see, you can't move anywhere because you're on air brake stop. So if I just put the brakes into full service, what you've got to do is, with these vacuum chamber releases, you've got to go around the engine and release the vacuum chambers. So what we're going to do is, if you look at these two gauges here, and you can also look on the HUD, what we're going to do is release the vacuum chamber in the locomotive. Make sure that's at 0. As you can see, we're now zeroed off on the vacuum chamber, I think. Oh no, not quite. Not quite. No, we are. There we go. Right. You go back onto the tender here and you'll see there's a vacuum chamber release cord. And again, you'll see on the brake cylinders here, so the reservoir here, you can see. So what you need to do is release that until you reach 0. And both tools, both the cylinder and the reservoir has released, gone to 0. Which you can see just there. Now the tender's released. And all we've got to do is come out here, climb down out of the loco. And we've got to find the coach here and release the vacuum there in the coach. There we go. We don't have to worry about the other ones because this coach is dual braked. We just need to make sure that this coach has been reset. So what we're going to do is climb back on the engine, put the brakes into release, then back into service. Then you see the brake chambers now coming up, then back into release again. You see the brakes now should come off. If I gradually open the regulator, I've got the reverse a little bit too high, I'll just bring that back a bit. There you go. As you can see now, you can now move the engine without getting stuck. So that's the ways if you want to open the large or small ejector by mistake and how to recover. What we'll do is we'll go on to coupling next. One of our next things is coupling Flying Scotsman. Flying Scotsman is quite unique as it has both a hook and a Buckeye coupling, as you can see. Now, depending on what rolling stock you're connecting to, as you can see, we've got our coach set here, and we've got a Buckeye coupling there. Now, on the front, so on the tender, it's only got it's got a Buckeye and a hook, whereas on the front, it's only got a hook on the front. So you need to make sure that, depending on which way Flying Scotsman is facing, depends on which way you connect your couplings. So if I had Flying Scotsman, for example, facing the other way, I'd make sure that I'd have it in on the coaches on hook rather than on Buckeye. Right, what I'm going to do is set Scotsman up to hook there. And what we'll do is we'll just quickly jump in the cab. And then I will go on to camera 8 on the keyboard. And then what we're gradually going to do is just bring the train back into the coaches. Again, remembering not too fast. But as I said, you need to make the corridor, you need to make the corridor connection. As you can see, the tender's got a corridor connection between the engine. So something you do need to come on a little bit harder than you would do for normal hook couplings. So there we go. So we're just about there. Open the regulator again. And there we go. And that is us actually coupled. So we don't need to do anything else. As you can see, all the brake pipes are now coupled. The difference is if you were hook coupling, when you push the coaches together, you just click on and it would click where it says hook coupling and it'll connect the couplings. So there we have it. That's coupling Flying Scotsman to coaches. What we're going to do for our main and last segment is hill climbing. So as you can see here, I've changed routes and we're here with Flying Scotsman running on vacuum stock, running on a heavy goods train, and we're on just around a 1% gradient. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the cab and I've set the reverser around 70%. So as you can see, just around there. And what we're going to do is we're going to just open the regulator just a bit, release the brakes, gradually bring the regulator up, just so we don't roll back. We'll close the cylinder cocks like that. Just quickly shut the regulator and open it again because we had a bit of a wheel spin. We'll bring the reverser back a bit, around 60%, open the regulator a little bit more. We'll now close the large ejector, keep some pressure. We'll bring the reverser back a bit, open the regulator a bit more. And as you can see, she's now happily climbing.
Obviously, one thing about driving on a hill, it's all dependent on the amount of weight you've got. So depending on how much rolling stock you've got, depends on how you will drive the engine, and some different ways of driving it, but make sure you're just a little bit more careful on the regulator and the reverser, and you're just a bit more gradual. Hope this tutorial has helped you. As you say, it's quite a complex locomotive to drive, but with going along, you'll learn how to drive it. So you're now in the driver's seat, so it's your go to have a drive. So have fun, and if you need any more information, then have a look in our usual places.